Okay.
And we're all set. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay. So we just all wanted to welcome you all, and we're willing to offer this through the Southeast Brainspotting Institute, really, because Beth saw on Brainspotting practitioners this call out for how do you do brainspotting online. So one of the key things I just want to say up front is that we are not going to cover the technicalities in terms of licensure, what you need to know for your discipline that you need to get elsewhere. We really wanted to keep it focused to brain spotting. But in general, as if we have time, a couple of questions, we can just share what we've done, but it's not a training in how to do, doing online therapy in general. So some of the things that we want to cover are going to be also to talk a little bit about the limbic countertransference, because this is really it's an existential trauma, and we're all both here in it. And our nervousness and our anxiety of like, how do you do brain spotting online? One of the things I want to first say is you're already great brain spotting therapists, and not to forget what you already know, but so we can sort of sort out some of that, like anxiety, like now there's this going on and I have anxiety about that, plus now I have to do something new and I have to learn something new. And so just to take a few deep breaths and say, yes, I know how to do brain spotting, and I've been doing it fine with my clients. So we're going to kind of go through some of that, some of the self-care, and then looking at some of the technically how to do the different setups. We want to cover that with you. And then also to look at how to strengthen the attunement, both for yourself and for your client, because we're going to be tracking slightly in a different tone, maybe. Why? Because we're doing online. Like I just recently gave a session to somebody. He goes, well, you can't see that my feet are shaking. So we're going to have that difference with our clients when we're not seeing the whole body, unless you set it up differently, but most people will be close by their computer. And then we'll talk about some tips on how to support our clients during the session and after the session. And then looking at enhancing some more grounding and, tracking, like what I said. But in addition to that, if there's things that you do want us to cover, if you can just put it in the chat box, because Beth is going to be monitoring some of that chat box as we sort of go along with stuff. And then there's a button to raise your hand, the button on the chat room, and then also we can see you if you're on the video. We can see you and we can check in with you. So this will be recorded so we can share it with others after, and also you can check out stuff that you might have missed while we're talking. Okay. So Nancy and Beth, do you want to say anything else? Do you want me to?
I just want to say thank you all for coming. I think that it's really difficult to take time out of our schedules, even when things are going swimmingly wonderful. And this is a hard time for everybody. And, so your dedication to making sure that you feel comfortable doing this work is a real testament to how wonderful of a brain spotter you are, simply because you recognize that we have to be centered and grounded for us to help our clients regulate. So thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Beth. And thank you everybody for being here.
Nancy?
Yes, what I want to say is that this time is a difficult time, but it's also an opportunity, a window of opportunity to really make good use of the technology that's available, but some of us are not aware of. And learning, and there is no better time to learn attunement, because attunement does not need to be face-to-face. Attunement can be, it's like meditation, it's like prayer. Attunement is that sense of feeling closeness, connectedness. even hundreds of miles away. So this way of working can be in the future, very much like in the future. So, and because of this crisis has brought us together in a good way. You just look at the Facebook group and then how many people come up and offer their support free of charge, and there are more coming up too. So if you look at the Facebook group, Cherie is offering one for free. Steve Sawyer is also offering one for free. So let's take it up. And also David Grant's phase 3 in Milwaukee is going, but it's going to be online. And David is going to cover very much in depth about coping with existential trauma, limbic countertransference, and also how to do brain spotting online as well.
Right. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a new announcement for all of us today, which was great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, we just finished the limbic countertransference training this weekend. A couple of you are here that were there, and you know, we're living in this template of needing to monitor ourselves. So it's how much you can get together, brain spot with each other, so that you can begin to, you know, just keep clearing whatever it is that you need to along the way, and noticing that we are attuned and we are sensitive. So sometimes we may not be experiencing something in our home, but we may just sort of feel something. And sometimes I feel like it's like the news kind of goes through my body, and I need to sort of remember that we're all together and we're all connected and we feel it. And then I need to do my practices to help modulate and ground myself.
Very important.
So that will go towards our self-care. So whatever practices you have, and what Nancy just said in terms of attunement, we're being called really and to attune to ourselves. But yesterday I was thinking, and I was talking to one of my clients about uncertainty, and I said, you know, we've been working with uncertainty, and it's kind of a gift. Well, I was telling a consult group, it's like we're kind of gifted with learning how to live with uncertainty, and to consider that in all of the repertoire of everything else that you're working with. Mm-hmm. That this is a skill that we have been enhancing for a while now. It depends upon how long you've been in brain spotting, but it's the foundation of brain spotting. Mm-hmm. And how we approach our client to start to remind ourselves, like, that's what I need to remember to do for myself. That's what I need to remember to do for my family members, for my clients when they're online. So just to remember the foundation of the uncertainty principle.
Mm-hmm. Just as you were talking, it made me think about how so much of the time we just as people fight and avoid uncertainty, and we seem to sort of make certainty a god. And when we really learn how to surrender to uncertainty, we not only give up the anxiety, but we open ourselves up to all the possibilities.
Right. Yeah. Right. And there are things that are out there now about possibilities. And, you know, I heard in LA that the smog is clearing. I mean, there's, you know, everything in life has the both and, or the good and the bad, as some people would say. Although when we do brain spotting, is it neutral? Is it good? Or is it bad? You know, but just being aware of the both and letting yourself get exposure to that, like looking things up online to remind yourself. I just posted something from this group that's there was this book called The 15 Commitments for Conscious Leadership. And so they have a website called Conscious Leadership, and they have all these different meditations and exercises, and everybody's making all this so available. you know, and our community is we're making it available to each other. So that's all.
And that feels wonderful. That feels wonderful. Because everybody has been so busy with their own stuff, but this crisis brought us all together in a good way, and we're supporting each other. And I wanted to say that from my personal experience, that I wasn't in a good place. I think because my association with perhaps in Asia started way back a few months earlier, my own personal stuff. And that was an invitation to really come back to the self. So if as clinicians, if we feel that we're overwhelmed, and give us permission just to really go inside, take time out. There's no better time. If you're freer right now, then take time for yourself. Listen to a few meditations, or learning something that you always wanted to learn but didn't have the chance to. Talk to your family, things like that. And I found gradually that we all get very creative about what we can offer to our family or friends and our clients online.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
So we have a question that's coming through the chat. We also had several that were on Facebook. Cynthia, do you have a preference as far as where we start?
No, we can start with those, and I'm sure we'll get through all of it. Could you talk about doing brain spotting? Sure. And Erin's question about brain spotting in virtual groups to be able to support multiple people at once. So Erin, just consider this as an example for starts. But I think that when we're working online, you're going to find a comfort zone for the technology and coordinating input from different people. Some people prefer to work in a smaller group, like maybe 5-6 people. Other people can do larger groups. And then, you know, having more structure and then opening it up, so kind of like what we're doing here. But the more you sit and practice with the technology, the more relaxed you can be around it. It's like learning anything new. So in general, but I think that we can also wait until we go through the setups to come back to that question in terms of maybe doing some group work with the setups. I don't know, Erin, how that?
Yeah, that would be great, because my concern is not about the technology, it's about the setups and what setups are effective for groups.
Yes.
So let's cover that when we'll go over the different, just the practicality of each of the setups, and then add group to that.
Totally. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there anything else, Beth, before we?
No, let's go ahead and do that. There are lots of other questions.
Maybe I think that would be kind of important to go right into, because from there we can get answers to maybe some other questions. So what I'd suggest is to take a moment to look at my screen, and this is the pointer. So let's go first with outside window. So I'm going to do it as if it like the training, the outside, the inside, and then the gaze. And then resource, and then we'll do the other ones from phase 2. So if my pointer is here, I can see some of your eyes, but some of them I can't see that well. So it will be very hard for me to really go across and look at outside window brain spots. So I find it easier if I do inside window, but some people, I have to tell you, do work with outside window with their clients.
Yeah, I'll tell you that.
Go on, Beth.
I was just going to say, sometimes I do use outside window, and when I'm working with a client, especially if I know that I'm going to be doing outside window, which sometimes you don't, but especially if I have multiple sessions with somebody, I always recommend that they get their own pointer.
Okay.
Some people use a pencil, but if your spot's over here, some people like to use you know, some of these stickies and stuff. But I think, I mean, just for me, the pointer is so much better. So this is how it looks. If Cynthia is my therapist and I'm wanting to do outside window, or we're going to do outside window, she's going to instruct me to move the pointer very slowly across my visual field, and I'm going to track it, right? And then she's going to be looking for any kind of reflexive movements, right?
There was something around the mouth and a little bit with the eye.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there's another blink.
Mm-hmm. There's the mouth. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
See, so you'll be able to see different things. And sometimes it's best even to combine inside, outside window. Because, you know, so I'm going to go across here, then I might come back this way if I'm doing outside. But if we're doing inside, outside, she's asking me for feedback, right? So I'm moving the pointer when she sees something.
What are you noticing there?
My hand is shaking.
And is there anything going on there?
My shoulders are hurting. And so that's kind of how that works, right? Okay.
And then you can ask the client, you just bring the pointer back to whichever spot you want to pick right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have a feel for which one might be the most advantageous for you, or where you feel like you want to start? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interestingly, I use the same method. I ask the clients to buy their own pointer, and at Amazon, there is a link that sells two. So so I have them go to that site so they can buy double in case of there's a chance for double spotting. And once they find a spot, or I help, we collaborate find a spot, and so they don't have to hold the pointer the whole time. I ask them to have a jar and would fill with beans or coffee or rice, and then because this jar the open is wide, so this can actually in various directions and various distance too, as you can see, and so they can just stay at that brain spot and continue. So it's very comfortable. They are not straining their arms or anything.
Or if they don't want to have a jar, they can use a pencil holder and do it. But you know, a lot of times people are going to stick them between their legs. I mean, think about when you do self brain spotting. Hopefully y'all, I mean, you know, we don't always have to use a pointer, but it's so great too, because then you can adjust things and, you know, you have a sense of where you want to take things. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Nancy. That's great.
Yeah. So one other thing that I'll add to that is, so that's like outside window or inside outside window. But as we were going across the field of vision, I was also sensing that's the same thing we do when we do rolling brain spotting, right? So I just wanted to add that one in, is that if I'm going across the field of vision and I notice something, I'm going to stop and the client will process from there. And you can just encourage them to say, if there's some place I've passed or that you want me to go back to, let me know. Or at any time, just, you know, give me a signal, and you can come up with a signal that will be both comfortable for both of you. And then you can work with, you know, the rolling brain spotting setup from that. So are there any questions about doing primarily outside window or inside outside window or rolling?
No questions being typed. You're welcome to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Okay, great.
No, okay. All right.
So then the next primary thing that we're all familiar with is inside window. And so the thing about inside window is I'm working within this frame. You know, we're always working with frames within frames. So if somebody tells me that it's beyond what they can see, then I'll just either move my chair, you know, over more, so I'm in a different location with them, or I may just say, let yourself find a spot, and they'll switch over to a gaze spot. So we'll just, you know, is it a little bit more here, here, or here? And the same thing with kind of going up or down.
Right.
And let me just say that the thing is when somebody's in their environment, just a couple of things that we didn't touch on, but it's important that they be in a comfortable setting so that while they're doing the brain spot, also that they're facing something that is okay, and also to be mindful of what's behind you, because they're facing themselves and they're facing you. And the other fascinating thing that happens is that this is the first time the client is watching themselves during a session. It's also the first time maybe we're watching ourselves during a session. So it adds a different paradigm to the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And today I was working with somebody and I noticed a picture on the wall. Don't ask me why, except I was doing brain spotting, so I'm just in the tail of a comment. I'm saying, and he's talking about, you know, I'm at my computer and the uncomfortableness of it or whatever, and I noticed this picture. So then later on in the session when we're working, I said, what is that picture behind you? And lo and behold, it was parts work. It turned into parts work. And then he ends up, because it was a picture of him when he was younger,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that were on the picture were the very similar words that I was saying to him, and he was processing from a body felt sense.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make it up.
Mm-hmm.
But and this would not have happened if he was in my office.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just telling you that the gift of the position where your client is, where you are, and what's in the environment is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
But let yourselves be open to staying in the tail of that comment too.
Right. There's a comment. So I've moved my computer screen and that has worked well too. So,
Yes.
So let's say that I'm the client and Cynthia is the therapist and she's trying to do inside window and so yeah, so go to, yeah. So like, I'm like, no, it's more over here. What I can do as the client, but see, she does, if she moves the screen, that's not helping me.
Right. So notice that
I move as the client, and now it's in the right spot. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Let me go over that again. Okay.
So you can see my pointer when you're way over there in your room, even though my pointer's off my screen?
No, put your pointer back on your screen.
Right. So then you're going to orient yourself.
So I'm going to orient myself,
Mm-hmm.
right. So if
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia moved her screen, like if I can't see the pointer at all, that's fine. But if it's over here, that's, yeah. So as long as I'm still in the frame, right? And you know, sometimes we just need to move back. So if I push my computer back, you know, and I'm like, nope, I need to be more here. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Now we can brain spot and she can even see more of me.
Right. So the other thing that I just wanted to add to that, what Beth is speaking of, is the orientation response. So we're working with that superior colliculi, and we're working with where you look affects how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question that Erin had about groups, so we can integrate that to this too, is if I am the therapist and I'm holding the pointer in a steady posture, same thing. So with a group, each person can then orient themselves to the pointer or in relation to the pointer, like what Beth did, everybody in the group could do.
Mm-hmm. In other words, if that is representing the anxiety about whatever, but this is online.
Let's say it's representing, the group could be representing the anxiety on the virus.
Right, exactly. So everyone orients to it. And certainly you could do a gaze spot. That's probably the easiest.
Right.
And again, it depends on many factors. Does the group know each other? Sometimes in these situations they don't. It's all individual clients, and you know, sometimes it makes sense to have a group meeting, especially depending if people have lost their job and you know they can't afford to pay for an entire session. They could do a group kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, so you just have to, you know, use your clinical judgment.
Mm-hmm.
An idea just came to me to do group sessions or to do group offering to your clients would be doing an online session self-spotting meditation,
Yes.
and then have them find their own resource spot, that through gaze spotting, and that is group that everybody benefits, and it's starting from body resource. You don't even have to have an activation. And I was just reading that section. This book is so good. The self-spotting session has 3 exercises of how to self-spot. The first one is finding and using your body resource. That's one exercise. The second one is self-gaze spotting. And really, you can use the language. I read it several times, but the more I read it, the more I kind of get it. It takes time to kind of sink in. And this is such a great way to do group, because when you do group, you don't want to be too specific or too activating. And the third one is self-inside window brain spotting. So these are all wonderful material to offer to your clients as a group.
Right. Or even what I've done with that, because I have a self-spotting card I give out at training.
Yes, that's wonderful.
And
yes.
it's on my line, but what I did do was I made an audible to go with that, so that your clients could hear your voice.
Yes.
And then have that direction, and they're connected to you already. And the key with what David pointed out in there for self-spotting, I mean, we'll do what we're going to do, but what he does say is that in the self-spotting, we don't connect the body felt sense around the issue, but we're finding a body grounding spot, and then it's more of like a gaze, and then reinforcing that grounding. Then we find this gate with this gaze spot. Then we bring the issue to the gaze spot. So it's resource upon resource, and then gaze spotting what the upsetting thing may be, but we haven't connected it with that body felt sense. So that will kind of help with that self-regulation a bit more.
Right. Another thing that you can do, instead of using the pointer, is to use your eyes as the gaze spot, or as the focal point rather, in a group like this.
Right.
And this is kind of a technical point, but it's important for brain spotting. So right now I'm looking at the camera, and if Cynthia is my client and I'm looking at the camera, she has a feeling like I'm looking into her eyes, but I'm not. I'm looking at the camera. And so I might need to look at her as we're doing the work. And she might think, what is she doing, typing? So this is one of those attunement things. It's important when you're doing the setup to let your client know, like, this is what it looks like when I'm looking at the camera, when I'm looking, because I'm really wanting to focus on you. I can peripherally see you, but there are times when I'm going to need to look directly at you. And so I just want you to be aware that that's what I'm doing. Because even the clients know that, they forget while you're processing.
Right. Yeah. So it's good to put that in the front end as we're framing the session and introducing them to the technology.
I think Beth just showed a really good example of what you like a client to, how the client shows up on your screen, because I can see her head, not much space between the head, top of the head to the ceiling. I can see her upper body. Then I can notice her breathing, her shoulders, are they this way or that way, if she's moving. So I get a lot more information when she's like this, because I find a lot of clients, first thing they go out is they only show their head. And there's not much. You can't even see them swallowing, right? So this is so much better. And as a clinician, which I found, because I've had brain spotting sessions done to me, I noticed how important it is that as on the receiving end, I know that they are watching me and looking into my eyes. So if my computer is like this, or then what you see is I'm looking it down, but I'm actually looking at the client, but I'm looking down. But if I position it this way, my gaze is higher and into the camera, and then they feel like I'm with them. And also just like in a session that we don't take our eyes off the client, the same thing in brain spotting. I've had clients tell me, I was just kind of just taking a little break, and they woke up, not woke up, but their shades opened up. It's like they felt abandoned when I wasn't always with them. So I think we have to be mindful and also close too. A little closer, they feel that closeness. But if I was like this, then it feels more of a distance. It's all about the feeling that we create in our environment, in our with our clients. Yeah.
Right. And even their attachment style too. You know, when you're in your office, you ask how close they want you to sit, and sometimes they're like as far away as possible. You know, or I want your knees almost to be touching mine. You know, I want to breathe the same air, which is why we're doing this right now. You know, virtually, right, because of the virus. So.
And so, and
what you're both talking about is that, you know, we're saying, do you want my chair closer or farther?
Yes.
So now we're just doing a very similar thing, but with a different parameters.
Right. And what I find helpful is to pin the video, pin the video on clients. So even when I'm talking, the Zoom is not showing me, it's showing the client. There is a function in Zoom where you can pin video on the client. So you always see the client, because sometimes it toggles, right? Whoever talks, the screen shows up. Yeah. So that's something that you can be mindful of.
Good. Okay. And yes, Erin, we can share the copy of the self-spotting card. Somehow we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to.
So outside window, inside window, gaze spotting, we can talk more about.
Yeah, there's something. The only other thing with this close and far is also made me think about the Z-axis. So you're using everything that you've been taught. It's just in a different environment. So even though I'm sitting here at my computer, notice that the pointer comes either towards or farther away. And somebody had said that, I forget where I saw this, maybe in our questions, that when they did the sweeps, it was calming, but then it got activating. So again, going back to what Beth just said around attachment, is to bring that into your frame of reference and be mindful to it.
Right. Yeah. Remember, because especially like when we're doing proximity and it's coming closer, the threat response is stimulated. Now, interestingly enough, sometimes that also depends on their attachment and depends on what you're doing work with. Like when I did Dr. Abel's addiction protocol with a client, and I did the hope spot, my client was like so just enamored with it and just amazed by it. I just had the thought, I'm just going to do proximity and see what happens. And as I did that, he was like, wow, this is amazing. So bringing the hope closer. So if you're doing something that's resourcing, you may just kind of play around with that. But yeah, you know, if you're too close to the screen, so if I'm my stuff out here. If I'm a therapist and I've got my screen right here and I'm doing it, you know, looks like I'm gonna hit Cynthia in the face.
Right? Yeah. You have to find that comfortable distance.
Yeah. Right.
Get out of my face. So let's go back to the setup. So we did inside window, outside window, and I think we've been referencing now gaze spot. So as I said before, the gift of gaze spotting is the environment that we're in, but also, as what Nancy and Beth are also pointing out, is that gazing, and sometimes don't forget that we're the brain spot. So your presence is really important, and notice what you need to do in terms of enhancing your own attunement. So I want to say something about that in terms of the environment that's around your computer. like whether it's, you know, a lot of your distractions. And one of our primary distractions are our mail that clicks into our computer.
Mm-hmm.
So, excuse me, just being mindful to
turn off all
turn
notifications.
off your distractions and your mail, stuff like that. And then also putting around you what's more resourcing and supportive of you to help you with that. And checking out that you're really comfortable in your chair, because you're working in a different environment than the one that you just maybe decorated to set up for Brainspotting.
Yeah, that is so true. I work with somebody who was getting chemo for the second time, and she said she's nauseated and she sometimes throws up, and I could feel that in my body. So I need to ground myself. And I thought, what's in my surroundings? And this is what I got from Cambodia. I've always loved this. So I just put it, you know, I don't have to show it to client, but I grab that and just put it right on my tummy and just kind of feel that calmness and that serenity. And I know it's hers.
Yeah. And I forget what this is called. This
mudra?
Yes. Okay. That's also a great way to block the energy, like from absorbing it. You know, you can observe it and notice it without taking it in. So that's really it's really cool that's that's what I do, Jess.
Yes. And another way I did just internally, and I had it in my hand down further down. It's like this, like there's a mirror, like that I'm inside, I'm in the bubble, and then this is her stuff, and I respect her stuff. But you know, I can see it, but I don't need to feel it. Because I think when we do online work, our senses are heightened in a way. They're, to me anyway, for me, online is actually more attunement for me than being in person. So I feel more, and then this is, something else that I use. And then if I feel that I'm triggered, and that I know is my stuff, that's already in me, that's the client brought it up, then it's like I'm telling that part of me, I'm doing my own parts of work, I'm telling that part of me, I see you coming out, I see that you have a message, and I will look after you, but I can't do it now, but I will look after you, I promise you. It's like a contract that I make it with that part of me. And then after the session is over, I do some self-healing, self-spotting, and self-compassion, so that that my words count to the different parts of me.
Right. Yes, that's so important. If we make a commitment to ourselves, that we really follow that through. And I notice that it's good also to maybe, you know, for myself, I like to put something on my feet. So it's like rolling your feet, whatever you need to do to help your presence. Let's go back to the gaze. Okay, so that's all about gaze spotting, and just part of that gaze spotting is the environment that you're in, and then noticing the gaze spots with the clients. So what you'll be able to see their eyes enough that you're going to notice where they're gazing while they're talking to you. You know, like if I'm looking up here or down there, and pointing it out the same way you already know how to do it. So trusting yourself that you can stay in the tail of a comet, and that you already are doing this. It's just kind of tweaking the environment to kind of add in a different way what's available to work with the client.
You know, I just thought of something, Cynthia. You said a few minutes ago that that online is a different frame. And that's a really beautiful way of looking at it. Instead of looking at it like it's some kind of real foreign experience, it's just a different frame, you know. And remember, with gaze spotting, you can also do advanced gaze spotting, where you have the client go internally and do whatever they can do to find whatever it is or bring it up, and they're going to naturally land on the gaze spot. Now, it might take a little bit of time, but we just wait, right? You know, one thing that I've seen online people are really worried about, just in general, in like, you know, in any environment, a lot of people are working from home now, and they're worried about, like, they have their kids because their kids are home because there's no school, and they're worried about what's that going to be like for clients, what's that going to be like, you know, is the client going to feel like it's not confidential or whatever, or is it going to be distracting, and these types of things. It's one thing that you can talk to your client about, but remember that if you're concerned about it, your clients have the same concerns, not for you really, but for themselves, you know? So they're worried about, they're working from home, they're on a meeting, just like this one, and their kids are beating the stuffing out of each other in the other room, you know? And so if you're working with a client and, you know, World War III erupts out in the next room, you know, that might just be an experience where the client gets to process that. And maybe they are mad that you have your kids home, or maybe they're in a place where they're like, oh, that's so great to hear, because I worry about that. And I'm worried about what the person in the meeting is going to think of me if my kid is yelling. And what I think of you is, right on, sister, for continuing to work. Thanks for taking me and taking this appointment while you're multitasking with your kids.
Right.
Well,
we do need to be mindful, though, if we are doing sessions, that we mark that time out with our families and support and take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And to know that we are all human, and these are really unpredictable, unplanned for times.
Right.
That
Yep.
people's human kindness is also there.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the guy who was being interviewed on CNN, and his little girl came in, you know, and he was so like unattuned. It was like all of his therapists were dying, right? We just wanted him to pick her up and put her on his lap, right? It wasn't a big deal. Yeah.
And that happened to me during a session. She's her daughter came in and just really needing to be hugged, wanted to play. So we included her in the session, and they're both so happy. I got to know the little girl, and she had a great session. I think it's really how we normalize things that are just not controllable. Yeah, she just wanted to be with mommy, and that's okay. Mommy wanted a session, but it's okay with this. She's only, I think, 3 or 4 at the time. It was okay. Mommy processed, no problem.
And it's beautiful that mom was able to hold space for herself and also be present for her daughter. And isn't that what we're trying to teach people, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
You know, Nancy, you were talking before about the attunement that you have being online.
Yes.
Years ago, before computers probably, that I was giving some phone sessions, and I would literally just like imagine myself going down through the center of the earth and up back to meet my client with where they were at. And it really helped me attune. So a lot of you are working with people that you already know. So just letting yourself drop into that felt sense of being with them that you already have and experienced. So I just wanted to kind of add that to this being a different flavor.
Yeah.
And
also another good way is to kind of front load the fact that we're far apart, but our hearts are together.
Yes.
And actually have a mini meditation of just grounding first, and then breathing, and then noticing that our hearts are open, however wide they want it to be, and that there is light and between the two of us, and that in that light there is trust, integrity, and guidance. I mean, just guidance from above, guidance from earth. It's all encompassing. It's for the best interest for them, however open or closed they want to be, and they can stop the process anytime they want to. It seems to really calm not just the client, but also calms me. Yeah, I think when I'm calm and grounded, and then I feel they are attuned to me and I'm tuned to them, the session just cannot fail. It can be just a meditation session and without brain spotting, but it's as long as we are noticing their reflexes and their eye positions, we are attuned. We're doing brain spotting.
Right. Thank you, Nancy. You know, years ago, before the brain spotting, I used to start sessions all the time with an intention and a prayer which was an attunement.
Yes.
You know,
it's so beautiful.
We do that organically with brain spotting, but the way you said that, I just felt the energy and the envelope in terms of like everything's part of the frame.
Yes, there's
Thank
containment.
you so much. That was
Yeah.
lovely. I don't know if everybody else like felt Nancy and our connection when you said that, but it was very powerful. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
So I really find online brain spotting easy if we set this up. This is a frame, because this is a frame that's physical but no limitation.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Mhm.
lovely. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So just wanting to
Comment. I love how she articulated that. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Right.
So the one thing I wanted to mention on the technicality also is the music.
Mhm.
But did
Okay.
we?
That's
So and then also one-eye brain spotting.
yeah. Let's keep going over the setups
Let's
because
go
that's
with-
a question.
First, finish up the setups.
Mhm.
So people can get like an eye patch to do one-eye brain spotting, or
Mhm.
create an eye patch.
Nice.
Then you can work that
Mhm.
way instead of having the goggles.
Mhm.
If they do have a spare pair of glasses or something, you could maybe ask them to put a cover on one versus the other, or something that can, like a Post-it or something. So
I just
get
learned
creative.
something new yesterday with an eye patch, that you can cut a hole in one side, and then you can do
Oh,
one
that's
eye and then turn around the other one eye. I thought that's wonderful.
That's
Most people
smart.
have an eye patch.
that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you can't scratch them either. That's great.
That's right.
Oh, there goes our Sebi pouches.
There you go.
They're good for
There
other
you
stuff.
go.
Mhm.
Oh, we have these Southeast Brain Spotting Institute pouches for, we made these for the goggles, to carry the goggles.
Oh, okay.
Now you can
This
just
is
get
easier.
one and put your little eye patch and pointer in it, right?
That's right. You can get it from a dollar store. There's two.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or
The air
Amazon has them really cheap.
Mhm.
thing. So we did inside, outside, gaze spot, and then of course resource setup. We work with inside window, so we covered that. And then just a moment to talk a little bit more about eyes opened and closed. So you'll be able to basically see that. And again, to remember to always say that you feel free to keep your eyes open or closed while we're working. And then at certain points, you may want to use eyes opened or closed as part of a way of working to downregulate or to shift, because just as that reminder that when my eyes are closed, I'm in a different ego state. And in a sense, with my eyes closed, you're all in my room with me, right? So when my eyes are opened, so my eyes are closed, you're in multi-dimension in my room with me. But when my eyes are opened, you're more like in 2D dimension in the room with me, you know? So just to remember that it's a very valuable setup, and to work with it, and supporting your client with that. The other thing that Beth had brought up before in terms of the gaze spotting, and when, and the environment, is that when I open my eyes, I will go to a spot that is organically grounding and comfortable. Let's say if I was led into a resource spot or an attachment spot, like my God spot or something else. But what I like to do with people is say to them, now close your eyes and turn your chair around. And then when you're ready, open your eyes and see if you can find that eye position again. And notice what you're feeling in your body now. So that they learn that where you look affects how you feel. So I have them do it in a couple of different positions, because they're not going to always be sitting in front of their computer on their gaze spot with me. So it's a way of helping people embody that spot and have that eye body brain connection.
And it shows them that no matter, like, that they will remember where it is. Like, intuitively, they know where the spot is.
Right.
Yeah.
So like Nancy was talking about, that grounding in that beginning prayer, also maybe being more mindful of tracking your clients and seeing what they need as you come towards closure at the end of a session, by doing some more resourcing or things that you might need, and then finding an eye position that connects with that. So today when I was working with somebody, they felt, we worked with a lot of activation in the chest that began to feel very good, and it just felt really peaceful. So I said, when you're feeling into that, does it have a color? And then a color came, and then we did that process of just noticing that color as if it's a water color, and talking him through expanding it and over the whole body.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lance, do you have your hand up while I'm talking?
Me? No.
No, Lance's
Oh,
hand
Lance. Oh.
doing a dance.
No, he was fixing his phone.
Oh, okay.
We can't hear him.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
muted.
so okay. So then,
Can I share something along
wait,
that
let me
line?
just finish. So
Okay.
I'll just say, so then what we did was we had him turn his chair and find that spot again, and just saying, your brain and body will know where it is. So that's a way of helping people know that you're trusting that brain-body connection, and you're teaching them to trust it.
Lance said, can you repeat that, please? I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
Lance,
hello.
go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Cynthia, if you could just back up, there was a piece, and for some odd reason I was listening, and then when I opened my eyes, you had your eyes closed and you were turning, and I sort of missed that.
Oh, yeah. So what I was wanting to help the client learn is where I look affects how I feel, and wherever my body is and where I can reorient and find that eye position again. So if, like, while I'm looking at you and I see that, like, here's my, like in this direction,
yeah,
it's my resource spot. So if I close my eyes and I turn my chair, I'm going to look in that direction again when I open my eyes and find that exact spot, and my eyes are locked now, but I'm looking sideways to you, or I'm looking also in a different spot in my room, but I have found my spot again. So
okay,
wherever I am in the world, I can still find my spot.
You can still find the spot. Okay, got it. Okay.
And to extend to that concept, that I find that it's really helpful. I think probably a lot of people do it already, to name that spot. So I have people name it as a happy spot or me spot, the person who always gives, but this is his me spot, or God spot, or breathe spot. So a person once, somebody who got on that spot, and that's every time she goes on that spot, she can take a breath, a deeper breath. So naming it. And also I often assign that. I say, could you see yourself doing it several times during the day? And if you can, what are the times that you feel that you can engage in this resource spotting, gaze spotting? And then if they say that, first thing I wake up in the morning, I can go on and then, okay, visualize yourself in bed and just waking up, and you're finding. So they are in their normal environment, and they're finding that spot, and it's where my window is. And then what other times you can, or maybe when I'm having my lunch at work, and then they can find that spot. So it's before they leave the office or leave their brains are already primed to do it more and more times. This is the neuroplasticity and neurogenesis that we're hoping the client can create on their own in between sessions. And I have found that pretty helpful, and because I have found it helpful myself in terms of stress or frustration. I go on my God spot, and then I talk to that spot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that beautiful, Nancy, and helping our clients learn how to remember, I'll often suggest that somebody set their alarm like every hour, every 2 hours, or maybe just at 12 o'clock. for a while there, I was setting my alarm at 12 o'clock to remember to call God. So it would help me connect. And I would be, this was years ago, but I'd be in session. I'd go, oh, that's my connection to God. Let's take a pause. I wasn't holding a pointer in silence in those days. But,
Wonderful.
but it's a great tool. And I think what we're kind of drifting over into is talking about, we have 5 minutes, is talking about things in between sessions to support our clients for grounding and connecting. So, yeah, we have a comment.
We have lots of questions. We're just going to go as long as we have questions, right?
Oh, okay.
I mean, you know. So Erin did ask online earlier, what setups work well online? We covered that. What doesn't work so well online? You know, what works well with one person won't work well with another person.
And some of that can also have to do with your signal. So I have been challenged in my household with a Mac computer versus a non-Mac computer. So that's why for today, for example, I'm using a hotspot that has a stronger signal. And sometimes I'll even use my phone as a hotspot because the signal's stronger. So there's some technicality that you're going to have to work out on that. But that's just my personal experience.
Yeah, I highly recommend that everyone hardwire in using an Ethernet cable, because, you know, and, you know, of course, restart your computer too before you start for the day, because it'll be faster.
Okay.
All right, so how do you set up music was a question.
Oh, yes.
So let's talk about music.
So there are some of if your client is a Spotify, or there's a couple of others they can get on Spotify. I know that David has Oceanic Feelings on YouTube. I do not know how to make that repetitive. Somebody did get that yesterday in a session from Spotify, and then they just gave themselves like about 6 versions of it so that it would be consistent for them. The other thing you can do is get them to go on, I see Cindy Smith is here, and they can go on to Bodhi Tree and download some of that music, or they can go to Bilateral Sounds and download some of David's music. Or if you wanted to buy it for your clients, but I don't know how you could really.
There is a free version that's an hour long, bilateral music. If I find a link, I can share with you. Yeah, that a lot of trainers use.
But one other thing I want to say about the music is that the client can have the headphones on, but if they're speaking to you through the computer, they're going to be needing to put the headphones on another instrument, an MP3 player or the phone, or vice versa.
Right. And one thing to, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, you can't, whatever the volume of the music is will be the same volume of your sound.
And a lot of times only one will play. The only thing is, when you have headphones like this, it muffles, you know, so if your client uses the cheapy headphones, that's really best, because it doesn't muffle as much. And remember, the prosody of the voice is very important. You know, especially because it's online, and if the client's not used to it, it might feel a little bit too disengaging. I am going to share, if I can get this link to work. This link I just put in the chat, you all are free to use just for your clients. You can't use it for commercial use. This is a recording that I created. So don't swipe it, please. I mean, you can use it for your personal, you know, to see clients, and you're welcome to share it with clients too. It's 11 minutes long. So it'll be on, you know, they can put it on a loop. So if they can't figure out the Spotify thing, or if, you know, it's just easier. But, you know, and of course, some people like certain kind of music and some don't, you know, so when people have ocean traumas, we don't want to use the ocean music, you know. So that's just another option that y'all are welcome to use.
So Beth, did you make this music like you personally are the instruments to it?
Yeah, I know I commissioned it.
Oh,
Yeah, you wouldn't
thank you
want me
so much
doing
for
that.
sharing that.
You're welcome.
You're so talented. I didn't know if I missed a talent there or not.
Yeah. Yes, Denise, we're going to record it and send it to everyone, or we're going to post it.
Yeah, we'll
in
post
the
this,
groups.
and then we will also send it out to SEBI members,
Right.
so they'll be able to get that in their email too.
Yeah, okay. So the sweeps was a question you covered already. Another question. My question is about holding space for the trauma from a distance. Is there some safety in being in the room, or there is some safety in being in the room, to put a hand on or a knee on somebody, being there to ground with the person if their processing brings up something difficult? What are the ethics around safety using this format? That's an area that we won't be covering. That's a question for your for your attorney and all that kind of stuff. But there are some important things that we need to talk about here.
Yes.
So you want to say something, Cynthia?
I do think that it has to do with our tracking the client
Mm-hmm.
and being mindful in how we're tracking the client and looking at the grounding and really staying within the window of tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
And going as slow as you need to go, because you are working different and you're not in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So what that beautiful prayer that Nancy led us in,
Mm-hmm.
some grounding, and however your clients are already familiar with you, unless of course they're new clients, and you can start to teach grounding, but I would really encourage the grounding at the beginning of this session and at the end of this session, and maybe even finding that resource grounded body spot, whether you're working from activation or resource. So it's an anchor that the person can go to throughout the session.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just really learning to ride that wave. So some of it is also going to be about you attuning to your own body felt sense.
Mm-hmm.
So over the years, I've really come to know my body is my instrument.
Yeah.
And I really just want to suggest that doing some of the things that we're recommending for clients that we start to do for ourselves. And like Nancy shared, that beautiful process that you go through around the self-spotting, that we all start to do some more self-spotting, that we pair up with each other and we, do some kind of consulting, spotting if you're in the same state, give each other some sessions. And if you want to, that would be also a very good thing for you to do if this is very new to you, to practice with one another. Mm-hmm. So pick somebody that you feel comfortable trying to do brain spotting in this modality, and that will calm you down a lot because you'll feel more prepared, you'll get feedback. But it is also good to have that feedback time from our clients, like the way we do talk about in phase one, where ask your client, what did you need a little bit more of? What do you need a little bit less of? Getting that back and forth engagement with your client is also really good. But trust your intuitive senses as you're working with the client, and then check in as you need to, but really monitor your own anxiety.
Right. One thing I do want to say is that, when it's online, many things can happen. Your internet may freeze, theirs may freeze. Yesterday, was it yesterday? Day before yesterday, doesn't matter really. My last client of the day, I use securevideo.com, by the way. It's a great HIPAA compliant format. And the last client of the day, and I had back-to-back clients, last client of the day got an email about 10 minutes before our session that said our session was canceled. What had happened is that Secure Video platform had crashed. And not crashed, but like there's something with the network that was jacked up, because I was fine on the session that I was on. So when I hung up and then tried to log in to her session, I couldn't get in. And so because I have a protocol, I had her phone number right here, and I called her and she said, "Oh, thank God." She said, "I thought that something had happened to you." Mm-hmm. And of course, that was part of her process and what she was going through as well. but letting your clients know, like, I need to know the address that where you're at when we have the session.
Right.
You know, that's really important for me. Also, I need to have whatever number I can reach you at, just in case things go sideways. I have another way of doing a video session with Spruce Health, which is what I use for my HIPAA compliant phone and text message and fax and stuff. But it was easier for me just to call her right away. And, you know, when you're doing brain spotting, you can do it on the phone. I think that's
Yes.
especially,
Yes.
you know, for me, having less input actually helps me focus more sometimes.
Same
And you
here.
can hear just like you know, and you can feel intuitively what's happening with the client. And your clients get really excited when they know that you're that attuned to them too.
You know, I've been working with David for years, you know, when I would do phone sessions, it would be by phone versus video because of that attunement. So that's really important, Beth, in terms of which way is it easier for you to attune with the client as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then sometimes I've had to use the phone as a backup for the sound. I used to find that with doxing me a lot, that it was cutting in and out way too much. And I think the free app is more like that than the other apps, what I've heard, but I don't know. But whatever is going to be comfortable for you to stay in that attunement and getting that number, that's great information, right? That we get the location and number, and also to see, like somebody asked about activation with your client. Who is home? Are they home alone? Is there somebody there? Is that a comfortable somebody? Is that not a comfortable somebody? Just doing all that online assessment stuff.
Yeah. You can find out information from your clients that you would have never known, you know, when you do it online. I was in session the other day, and my client's child brought him a plate of like a lunch plate. And, you know, he was just very focused on what we were doing. And he was like, oh, you know, like he said, thanks so much, whatever your name is. And he was like really gentle and wonderful, you know? And I was like, that was so beautiful to witness that, you know? And so the online thing can be remarkably helpful for your practice and your clients' growth. So
yeah, one thing I can add to that about a gaze spot was when I was working with somebody and there was a photo of her grandmother in the room that she was in, and that is her resource person.
Yeah.
And that would never have happened in my office.
You
know, and other times a crack in the door can lead to such deep, deep work. But if you're in the same environment, it may not get there. So the gift of the environment is amazing.
Yeah, they'll have access to their animals, you
Right.
know, and to your animals, depending on, you know.
Honey's quiet today.
Right, yeah. I guess it's nap time for my cats because whenever the door's shut, they're always like, hey, what's up?
But sometimes you'll find a cat going across your client's desk.
Yes.
It will happen. Yeah,
and I think that if you are doing it online, you're new at this, sometimes less is more, because I think sometimes when we're nervous, we tend to intervene, talk more, intervene sooner. Just give yourself the time. I think in brain spotting, the beauty of it is that we don't have to think too much, and we just follow and we sit and we wait. And it's the same principle also online, is that you allow the client to work through their issue, their own timing. So
and with
sometimes
that,
less is more. And also, I actually had a client who's so anxious that we couldn't do any real brain spotting, and she knows that she'll be triggered so much. And then so I said we did a lot of body scanning and a lot of meditation, and after a few sessions, and she has a pointer and she can brain spot 5 minutes. That's all she could do it, and that's fine.
Right.
So I just want to touch on new clients, because we've been talking with this thought that you're probably working with people that you already know. And the past 2 days, I have had new clients. It's, again, just to be mindful that you're going to be introducing them to the frame in this format versus in your office format. That somebody was getting like, I don't know how this is going to work, and I'm just really feeling pressure. And then it's like, well, where are you feeling that pressure? And then as we were getting to know each other and learning about that pressure, it led to a beautiful piece of work.
Right.
So
that would have been present.
Exactly. Working on what's in the present.
Even if they were in your office, it would have been the same thing, most likely. You know, how is this really actually going to work?
Yes, it was one of these, somebody who was much more analytical.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that, are there any other questions? I think we covered the things that
we answered all the questions that were written. Just unmute yourself if you have a question and just ask away, people. Anybody? So do you feel like you're ready to go out there and do some brain spotting online?
I have a question. And I've been thinking about this. Can you just talk a little bit about doing expansion? I know that you talked about the, sort of that hope spot or God spot, and we've referred in this conversation today. But I'm eager to think about applying the expansion model to this, and I've not had to do it yet. Right off the last training, and I'm not seeing people face to face. So, if you're willing, can you talk a little bit? Thanks.
Yeah. So is there a specific thing that you think that you might want to do expansion on with a client? Like a spiritual sort of thing, or, you know, performance in some sort of way, or creativity expansion?
Just the person that I'm thinking about in particular, the hypothetical person that I'm thinking about is thinking about employment and literally moving to another country. It's just been overwhelming for them. Doing brain spotting, they're phenomenal with brain spotting, and then after that last training, I've just not had a chance to employ it yet. And so
but remember that expansion is, if you think about a number line when we're doing trauma work, people are in the negative, and we want to bring them up at least to like I can handle it, like maybe like a neutral kind of like no negative kind of thing. Expansion is the other side of that. So it's like there's no negativity necessarily that's coming up around it. This is just expanding something that we already are really good at. So I would start with dealing with any kind of anxiety in that, probably the uncertainty of things. And then once they're in that place where they're ready, I would look at, like, you know, the endless possibilities and do some expansion work with that. And you can find a spot where they can access that place in their visual field where they can see an expansion of things. One thing that I do too is, like, here's maybe where I am like today, and then here's where I want to be. And so doing a double spot there, you know, and sometimes it's helpful to see where I've come from, right? So I might need to grab another pointer, or I can just do I can do a gaze spot, right? So where I came from might be down here in the dumps off the screen. Where I'm at right now might be kind of here, but where I really want to be is off the screen up here. And you don't need to see, if I'm the client, you don't need to see where that is, because you just have a sense and you're going to follow it. And I'm going to be going back and forth, you know, just trusting my own instincts with it. Does that make sense, Lance?
And then there's one other thing I just want to add with that, which I don't know that we teach it lately, but I did that with somebody in the demo, Beth, with those 2 pointers. There's this thing called drag and drop. So if, for example, Lance, your client is got some fears, but he also sees this possibility. After working on those 2 points for a while, very slowly seeing what happens if I start to move and that gap between the two gets smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, I'm going to rush through it, but the 2 points come together and then seeing what happens.
And what do you call that?
We used to call it drag and drop. So I'm dragging either, one towards the other.
Okay.
Until it becomes, I guess it's like from a mouse or something, I don't know. But, oh yeah, like dragging a file and dropping. So I'm dragging my fear into a place where there is no fear.
Yeah.
And but in that process, and also just like along the way, there's a lot of process happening. So in a sense, I'm rolling from fear towards non-fear.
Mm-hmm. And you can even do, if you're doing like, here's my where I am spot and here's where I want to be, and it feels like it's a chasm, you can do where you're looking in between, and seeing what has to happen for me to feel comfortable with that move,
Right.
Right?
Or sometimes even if I find one spot, I'll just say to somebody, what's standing in the way between where you're at now and this possibility?
Mm-hmm.
And then they can kind of Z-axis along that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's very many different ways to work with it.
And then in the framework of the new teleplatform, right? I have this, okay, so I had this imagination, and look, I may talk to you guys in consultation, Beth. Yeah. So, but if you're trying to set it up in a bigger field, what would that, I guess that's part of my, right? Because we can't see that bigger field of what they're looking at. Does that make sense? So I sort of felt like the frame got small for them if we're looking at expansion.
Oh, right. Because
right.
If you're the client, I can't find that spot for you. So it's important that, which is why Nancy and I ask our clients to buy pointers themselves. So that like if you're my therapist and I'm your client, if my spot is way up here, you can't see it, but I can. It doesn't matter that you can't see it.
Yes.
Right? I mean, because I'm on it.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Got
welcome.
it.
So I think this is, if there's no more questions about the technology and the Brainspotting online, we can come towards closure and know that certainly keep reaching out and asking any one of us. We're here for you, and so grateful that you've taken the time, and hope that this has been valuable to you.
Can we end on a group spot?
Let's end on a group spot. So thinking about the both and just thinking about everything that's happening in the world, your anxiety around it personally, professionally, and also considering that, yes, I can really do online therapy. So think about all of that and notice for yourself what comes up for you.
And just having an awareness of the brain spotting community surrounding you and holding that frame as well.
All of those that are online here and beyond. Knowing that that love in our hearts connects us all. And then notice what you're feeling in your body, where there's any constriction or anything calling your attention. And I've put my pointer up if you want to orient yourself around it, or if you have one in your office and you want to use that. Or continuing with your eyes closed or opened and finding a gaze spot. Kind of taking in all the teaching that we just went through and finding what works for you in this moment. And just checking in and noticing what you're feeling now in that spot in your body. And taking a few more minutes. And checking in one more time in your body. And just feeling the gratitude to yourself for showing up today. And we all feel grateful that you shared your time with us. And have a blessed day. And I'm going to slowly take the pointer down and just kind of wiggle your toes and continue to process as we go offline if you choose, or whatever you choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
Be well. And take good care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a beautiful session.
Thanks.
Yeah.